Doug. Did you know that today in 1964, Walt Disney premiered the amazing movie Mary Poppins in Los Angeles? And do you know how to spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, Doug?
Of course, it's SUPERC. Wait. Let me start over. SUPE.
All right, I'm just going to mute him for a second and let him cook for a little bit. Let's not bother him. Welcome to the Diehards. With your home league drafts around the corner, we didn't want to talk about the players at the top of your rankings. You have heard enough about them already. Instead, we're going to talk about the late round players who have the chance to help you win your home leagues. I am your host, JJ Wenner, and as always, I am joined by the fantasy orthicle himself, Doug Orth. How you doing, buddy?
I am good, doing well, and we're in the heart of, well, for me, high stakes draft season. So, how are you, JJ?
I'm in the height of low stakes draft season, and I'm excited. $25, baby. Whoo, making bank.
Oh.
All right, to help us out tonight, we're joined by a fantasy football analyst for the NFL and Fantasy Life, host on NFL Network's NFL Fantasy Live, a lifelong sports fan and self-proclaimed professional nerd. He blends a sharp football insight with a love for comics, cartoons, music, and all things pop culture. He's truly a multi-talented voice in the fantasy space, and I have learned that he still owns a working Atari 2600. It is our friend Marcas Grant.
Oh,
what's going on, guys? Good to be here.
Good to see you, my friend. How has life been treating you?
Things are good. I just went through a move. My wife and son and I, we moved to a new house a couple of weeks ago. My word of advice to all of you out there, to you two and everybody who's watching or listening, don't ever move. Never move. Wherever you live now, just live there for the rest of your life. It'll be okay. You don't have to move. It's fine.
No, 23 years in the same place. They're going to have to bury me in the backyard.
I'll just say this. I'll say this real quick. I've been in the same place 17, 18 years. I said the next time I move will be one day or 1 year too soon. So
you will never learn. If you want to know exactly how much stuff you own, try packing it up and moving it somewhere else.
Yes.
No, thank you. No, thank you. My wife does a really good job of purging the past few years. Mm-hmm. I have a harder time, though.
Good for her, though. Good for her.
Hey, she puts up with me, so. All right. Doug, is there anything that the good people should know before we begin tonight?
Yeah, so JJ kind of already alluded to it. But we're going to use the real-time ADP from Fantasy Pros, and our esteemed guest, Marcas here, and I will be selecting one player from each position, ranked outside the top 140 in ADP and PPR leagues, and explaining why we want to make room for them late in our drafts.
Sounds good to me. So let's just kick this off. I know we're on a little bit of a time crunch, so let's start with the QBs. Marcas, who can help me win my home league?
I like Bryce Young. And I think Bryce Young is a study in patience for a lot of us, right? Because remember year one was bad. I mean, there's really no way around it. It was a bad rookie year for Bryce Young. Meanwhile, CJ Stroud was doing big things in Houston. And the conversation was, well, the Panthers whiffed on this one. The Texans obviously got it right. Bryce Young is a bust. Then year two happens, and CJ Stroud comes back to earth. And as the season progressed, Bryce Young just kept improving, and especially late in the season, got better. It's funny, because on our NFL fantasy podcast, we had a chance to talk to both Adam Thielen, I guess now of the Vikings, and Xavier Legette. And both of them intimated, they wouldn't say it directly, but you could kind of sense from how they were speaking that I don't think a lot of the guys in that huddle loved the idea of benching Bryce Young, that they saw the growth, they saw the development, and felt like the front office and the coaching staff pulled him a little bit too quick. And they were all excited to see him get back in there and continue to grow. I think part of it was last year he started running a little bit more. Some of it was him running for his life, but those yards count the same in fantasy, whether it's a design run or a scramble. We'll see if they integrate that more into this year's offense. But they've gone out, they've added weapons around him. They go draft Tedero McMillan. Curious to see how the rest of this receiver room develops. But I think what we saw from him was positive growth. I think it's going to continue this year. And again, we're talking guys in the late rounds, right? So I think the unspoken thing in all this is the draft price is right? That the reward outweighs the risk in all of this. And I think if Bryce Young continues to take another step forward, I think he's going to be a QB2 that you'll be glad to have.
And almost, the Adam Thielen trade makes me feel a little bit more confident in what they do have.
Mm-hmm. No,
right?
I agree.
Because they trust Tet enough to let him go.
Yeah. I mean, I think we saw a couple years ago, we were all shocked when Adam Thielen was like for the first month or so of the season, like he was a legit wide receiver one. Nobody saw that coming. I think they want to lessen their reliance on a guy who's, on the back end of his career at this point. And I do think they believe they've got something in McMillan. I think they're expecting more from Leggett, from Jalen Coker, from a lot of these guys. And so I do think, to your point, trading Adam Thielen away was a vote of confidence for the guys they have left in that room.
Agreed.
That's awesome. Now, we do have a question from the chat. He's in a 12-man, 1 QB, 1-2-3-1, 2 kicker and defense. Everybody took 2 to 3 QBs. Bryce is available. The only QB he has is May. Should he grab him now or just wait for people to drop?
I mean, why not both? Why not go get Bryce Young, and then inevitably when somebody drops their quarterback, because they'll look around and realize that I don't need 3 quarterbacks, then you can make an evaluation right there. But at least you've got 2 guys that you can feel semi-confident in. And if you have a chance to upgrade, you go upgrade.
Sounds like a good plan. Good evening, Jameson. Thanks for tuning in.
Well,
Sean, Doug?
And I say to Marcus's point, I was on a high-stakes draft last night, 18 rounds. I got him at 18-10. So yeah. And you see what he did at the end of last year when he put it together. He was running. And I personally, for one, I think points. I think running for your life should be scored differently than just running. So let's. Is
it more points or less points?
We have to talk to MFL and Scott Fish and see if we can incorporate that next year. Doug.
Yes, sir.
Who is your QB?
The easiest argument to make for JJ McCarthy is that his head coach, and basically everything his head coach touches turns to gold. He made career backups Nick Mullins and Josh Dobbs look good at times. He oversaw an almost unthinkable season from Sam Darnold last year. Before that, he had Kirk Cousins on a career best track before he tore his Achilles midway through the 2023 season. Each of O'Connell's 3 offenses in Minnesota have ranked no worse than 6th in the league in passing yards or passing touchdowns. While we should expect O'Connell to rely more heavily on the rushing attack than any of his previous editions of the Vikings, to basically ease McCarthy's transition to the NFL, and I know he's in a second year, but this is he obviously didn't have any starts last year. I doubt Minnesota will dip much lower than last year's 548 pass attempts. With the weapons McCarthy has at his disposal, it would be shocking if he didn't play well almost immediately. The crux for the rest of my argument is this. If you like Brock Purdy, you should like JJ McCarthy. They're similar athletes and similar offenses. Although we cannot expect McCarthy to outproduce Purdy in 2025, given the fact that McCarthy is essentially a rookie and needs to develop some touch on his throws, it would not surprise me if he did, considering basically outproduce Purdy, if he did, considering he has better supporting cast. Continuing the Purdy comparison, and I'll just wrap up here, Purdy finished as the overall QB 12 last year, despite missing 2 games and attempting just 455 passes, in part because he was so efficient and ran for 323 yards and 5 scores. For all the reasons I just laid out, it would not surprise me if McCarthy had a similar year.
JJ McCarthy. Any thoughts on him, Marcus?
I'm coming around to JJ McCarthy. So my hesitance originally was for all the things he did at Michigan, right? He was just a straight up winner at Michigan. They never asked him at any point to, necessarily have to take the game on his shoulders and go win it. But I think that wasn't necessarily the fault of McCarthy. That was just because they had such a good all-around team. I mean, they had Blake Corum in the backfield. They had Roman Wilson at wide receiver. They had a phenomenal defense. So, I have to remind myself, I always say that just because we haven't seen a guy do a thing doesn't mean the guy can't do that thing.
So well said. Yep.
Right. And so I think that is in play with McCarthy. But the other thing that has me coming around, and you hit on it perfectly, Doug, just belief in Kevin O'Connell, man, just belief in what he does offensively. And, you mentioned he made Nick Mullins look viable for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like that feels like it's worth a lot. So if he could take Nick Mullins and make him into a viable starter, why can't he do the same with a guy who I think is much more talented?
Yeah. And in my dynasty heart, him giving up on Sam Howell and trading him makes my little heart break. I always thought maybe KOC could do something with Sam Howell, but unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Marcus, which running back should I take in the late rounds to help me win?
I have been so big on Jadon Blue pretty much all offseason. And I say this as somebody who I was a huge Javonte Williams guy coming out of North Carolina. I loved I loved his talent. I loved the way they used him in college. And I was sad originally to see him go to the Broncos and have to share a backfield with Melvin Gordon. All these years later, I've just sort of had to kind of admit to myself that it's probably just not going to work out for Javonte the way I had originally hoped. And he's in Dallas. I think he's sort of a stopgap measure for the moment. I do think he'll start the year as the number one guy. And he'll probably hold on to that role all year long. But just the drum beats about Jadon Blue and the fact that he's so explosive and potentially a home run hitter in this offense, I think is hard to ignore. I think he's a guy who's going to be in the rotation there. And depending on how things go, maybe that role grows at the end of the year. And I think when you're looking at a running back this late, you just want a guy who has a pathway to something bigger and better as the season goes on. And so I think Blue's got that. I think he has potentially some standalone value by the time we get to the midpoint of the season. And not wishing anything, but if something were to happen to Javonte Williams, then suddenly he walks into a huge opportunity in a Dallas offense that, I don't know overall how they're going to be with Brian Schottenheimer, but it's still a potential really big workload if Javonte's not there.
Jadon Blue, I was not expecting that. Doug, where are you on Jadon Blue?
Well, I think I have him in probably my high 40s as far as my PPR rankings, but just to speak to Marcus's point here, you could do a lot worse in late rounds than take big play running backs who have heavy involvement in the passing game. And I think that's exactly what is going to happen with Blue. Plus, I think we can expect the Cowboys to be among the league leaders in pass attempts. So you can give CeeDee Lamb his 150 to 170 targets. You can give another 100 or 110 to George Pickens. Guess what? You still have over 300 to dish out. And so I think a 40 to I'd say a 50 catch season is definitely within reason for Jadon Blue this year. So, yeah.
I like hearing that. Doug, who's your running back?
As a player, I ranked as my RB 56 on my final PPR draft board last summer. I did not have many shares of Trey Benson in his rookie year. Lo and behold, I have went from a hater to a lover, apparently. Here's the thing. Head coach Jonathan Gannon and James Conner both expect Benson to see more work than last year. Kyler Murray believes Benson is primed for a big year. Okay, fine. That's what coaches and players are supposed to say about a teammate. The fact of the matter is he was quite efficient when he actually saw the ball after the first month of the season last year. He just didn't see the ball a lot because Conner was playing so well. However, that's not the main reason why I have him ranked as highly as I do. Much like my boy, and JJ already knows who I'm talking about, much like my boy Jordan Mason, Benson is a powerful runner operating as the primary handcuff behind an aging back. The thing about Conner is that he's never played a full season. He came close last year. He just missed one game, I believe. But he exited, I think, was it week 16 and week 17? That one was about 3 or 4 touches, and that was about it for him there. Anyway, the thing about Conner is he never played a full season and typically misses at least 3 games. Cardinals want to run the ball as much as possible, and Benson is the only back outside of Conner on that roster who can help handle a heavy workload. Yes, Benson's vision and anticipation need to improve. We saw clips of that on Twitter. We know that he needs to improve that. With that said, he brings more explosiveness to the table than Conner. Benson is worth drafting based on handcuff value alone, but the likelihood that he will also give his manager standalone value on at least 8 to 10 touches per week this year is worth more than a 12th round selection in fantasy drafts.
So Trey Benson.
Trey Benson.
Not surprised.
Trey Benson.
Trey Benson. I'm just saying it to see how it
Trey
sounds.
Trey Benson.
Marcus, where are you on Trey Benson?
So I will admit that I feel like James Conner is one of the underrated and sort of underappreciated backs in fantasy. And I loved drafting him. In fact, I had a draft earlier this afternoon where I took him. I think in the 5th round is where I got him. But I think the point that, he's a guy who runs hard, always misses time, is one that can't be overstated. And for as productive as he has been, especially around the goal line, I mean, he just seems to have a nose for the end zone. I do see a world where the Cardinals start to maybe ease off giving him as many touches as they have in the past to try and preserve him as much as possible. I think the NFC West is going to be a dogfight this year.
Yeah.
The Rams are good. I think the Niners will bounce back from what was a disastrous season last year. The Seahawks will be competitive. The Cardinals will be competitive. I think this is just going to be a really knockdown, drag-out division. And I think to that point, you're going to need some help in that backfield. I know Trey Benson earlier this offseason said that they have 2 number 1 running backs. Again, to Doug's point, that's kind of what players always say, right? Like, you're never going to hear a guy come out and say, you know what, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for the opportunity.
Don't give me.
I'm just happy being on the roster.
So don't give me the ball, coach. I'm not ready for this. But I do think we're going to see a lot more Trey Benson sort of mixed into the offense this year. I think they want to diversify, and I think Trey Benson is going to be a big part of that.
All right, we do have a question. It's a bit of a long question from June C. He messed up. He took Rice early in a draft. He has Reed and Tillman would be his replacement. It's a 2-flex league. He has CD, JT, and Bucky as auto starts. Flexes are Pollard and Harvey. However, he did receive a trade offer for Devonta Smith and Dak for his Mahomes and RJ Harvey. Should he make that deal because he is thin without Rice?
I would. I mean, I think Dak's another guy who's being underrated, and maybe it's the injuries, but the fact that he's hanging around so long in drafts, it's like, did we forget what Dak Prescott is for fantasy over the last couple of years? That as long as he's healthy, he is as productive as anybody, and I think adding George Pickens only makes that better. So, look, I like Mahomes. I think Mahomes rebounds this year, but I think you're not losing a ton with Dak, and you're getting somebody to help you in that wide receiver spot. So I would make that trade.
And although it's not best ball, having its stack of CD and Dak,
not terrible.
Some pretty big spike weeks.
Not terrible.
Doug, you on board?
Yeah, I'm on board with that. But to me, you can basically cancel out Dak and Mahomes. And speaking to Marcus's point, in Prescott's 3 healthy seasons, basically the seasons he's played 16 or more games, the last 3 times he's done that, it's been QB3, and QB6. So just and I struggled to remember the last time Mahomes was up there. I know he's still Mahomes, but the last time he was actually up there. So to me, the trade is basically Smitty for RJ Harvey, and it looks like you have the running back depth to absorb the hit. So goes for Smitty, who's also very underrated.
There you go, June C. Answers from the guys who have them. All right, people, if you want to crush your draft this season, then you need to access one of the most accurate rankers in the game, Jody Smith's 2025 Fantasy Football Rankings with tiers, exclusively at fulltimefantasy.com. Use code BLITZ50 for 50% off your first 2 months and get early access to the rankings tiers and members-only content. That sounds like an OnlyFans. Sign up now at fulltimefantasy.com. That's fulltimefantasy.com. Go pro. Join full-time. All right, gentlemen.
That's what I love about JJ. He doesn't ad read, and he promotes two sites in the one ad read. That's
bang for your
I'm
your
only
buck
on
right
one
there.
of them, so you guess which.
You can figure out which one.
All right, another question. San Francisco wide receiver room is always good for fantasy. Can you talk about them from Ayuk to Watkins?
Sure. I honestly, if I mean, in the vein of producing and segues, I can tell you that Brandon Ayuk was kind of my late round wide receiver that I was targeting right there, just because
Perfect.
at that point, at that point in your draft, right, you probably have filled out your starting spots. You probably have another one as well, kind of loaded up, maybe a flex or maybe a bench guy. Um, we know Brandon Ayuk's going to miss a good chunk of the start of the season, but at that point in the draft, I'm willing to make the bet that Brandon Ayuk can return and look, a semblance of what we saw before the injury. Like, I know last year that there was the weird holdout, and he started slow before he got hurt. But like, if we go back to the 2023 edition of Brandon Ayuk, the guy who really had taken over as the wide receiver one and was becoming a legit threat, both in real fantasy and in a real football and fantasy. I'm willing to kind of make that bet, this late in a draft. So if it works out, then suddenly you're looking at a situation where you could have 2 or 3 wide receiver one caliber guys on your roster. So that to me feels like a risk worth taking. As for the rest of that wide receiver room, the talk seems to be Juwan Jennings should be ready to go for week 1. I know it's been kind of quiet there for a while about that. They're definitely hurting because they're one more injury away from like me suiting up at wide receiver right now. I mean, they went out and signed Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yes.
So we'll see. But
is Mecole Hardman available?
he might be. I mean, they traded for Sky Moore last week. They really are just. I mean, at this point, Kyle Shanahan's just kind of stacking bodies out there just to kind of get him through. Hoping that Juwan Jennings comes back healthy, waiting for Brandon Ayuk to come back healthy. I think it's going to be a heavy dose of Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle in the interim until they get everybody back and ready to go.
Shanahan feels right now like we usually do at week 17 with our fantasy
right.
When you keep sorting that MFL list, like hitting the different buttons, hoping somebody,
hoping a name you haven't seen before shows up, right?
I'll go with a blast from the past. Come on, say Jero Tutu. Where are you?
Right, exactly.
Oh, Doug. Doug,
I know.
You crazy
I know.
lunatic. Who is your late round wide receiver?
Well, speaking of crazy, I got crazy for you right here. Let's face it. The offensive environment in New England last year was awful. And like every Patriot, Demario Douglas had little chance to succeed. While statistics actually improved from his rookie year to 2024, there was little rhyme or reason to when Douglas was worth starting in fantasy. And for most of the first half of the season, he alternated 9 targets and 3 targets on a pretty consistent basis. It was go back in his game logs and look. It was 3 or 9 for basically weeks 1 through 8. Anyway, the consistency of his targets seemed to get better once Drake May took over, but former offense coordinator Alex Van Pelt never quite figured out how to utilize Douglas's talents consistently. That shouldn't be a problem under new OC, well, actually 3-time Patriots OC Josh McDaniels, who has made a living of peppering his slot receivers with targets. So I'm not saying that Douglas is the next Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, or Jacoby Myers. What I will say is that the guy that they call Pop is nearly impossible to cover one-on-one when he gets a free release, which is something he's almost guaranteed to do as the primary slot option in New England. I would expect McDaniels to take advantage of Douglas's quickness in a way that Van Pelt never could, in part because of how much better New England's offensive line is going to be this year. Now, I get it. Stephon Diggs and maybe even Travion Henderson will undoubtedly steal some of Douglas's slot snaps. Wow, slot snaps. Yeah, but I doubt it. I doubt it's going to be enough. I doubt it's going to be enough from keeping Douglas to set career highs, basically across the board. To me, Douglas is almost discount Josh Downs this year, and Downs is already being discounted very heavily. Douglas may never be much of a red zone threat, but I think 80 catch upside, even if it comes in the same way that Wan'Dale Robinson delivered it last year, I think that 80 catch upside almost always plays in PPR leagues.
But he's so much more explosive than Wan'Dale. I love Pop Douglas. Marcus, where are you on Pop?
Oh, I love Pop. No, I do. I'm curious what this wide receiver room is going to look like as a whole. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is there. We'll see how much he has left. I mean, I think he's on a revenge tour a little bit this year.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like, I'm curious because, Pop Douglas, I think, was sort of overlooked last year because the Patriots offense just wasn't super exciting. Another guy that I like in that range, late rounds, I like Kyle Williams just because I'm curious to see what he can do alongside Drake May. But Douglas sort of has the leg up as a guy who's been there a little bit. And I know it's a new air quotes OC, a guy who's been there a few times, but coming back again. I do think he's going to get a lot of opportunity this year. If Hunter Henry leads this team in targets again, something went terribly wrong for the Patriots. And so I am totally on with Pop Douglas being a late round flyer guy.
All right. I love to hear that. I've been picking up a lot of Pop Douglas late in drafts.
I'll just throw this out here real quick. I have him ranked at 107. His real-time ADP on Fantasy Pros is 194. If that gives you any idea.
All right.
So you have a chance. Is that what you're saying?
I have a chance to be wrong. I have a chance to be really wrong. That's what I have.
Carla would say you're always wrong.
Wow. She does.
All right, Marcus, let's finish this up with tight ends. Who is your late round tight end that I can get?
So I was born in the latter part of the 1900s. And as I approach half 100 years old, I can say with certainty that the Jets have never had a tight end worth a damn in my life. That being said, I'm excited about Mason Taylor this year. All of the reports were glowing. What we saw from him in preseason, training camp looked really, really positive. And Garrett Wilson, we know, is going to get a lot of opportunity there. But I think there's room for some other pass catchers in this offense consistently. Take preseason depth charts with a grain of salt. But, if you're into that sort of thing, Mason Taylor right now is listed as the tight end 1 in New York. There's a lot of opportunity. There's Garrett Wilson. Stop me when somebody else really floats your boat. Alan Lazard, Josh Reynolds, Xavier Gibson. Where are we going with the ball beyond that? So I think there's a real chance for Mason Taylor to make, maybe not a huge, this is not like I don't want you to get excited. This is not a Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers kind of rookie season. But I do think in a world where after, say, the top 6 or 8 tight ends, it's really kind of up for grabs as to who goes next. I'm willing to throw a dart at Mason Taylor and seeing if he develops into something in year 1.
I will mention Dustin Keller. I did like Dustin Keller.
Okay.
For that brief moment, as a Jets fan, it's been a minute.
I can concede Dustin Keller to you, sure.
Thank you. Doug, where are you on Mason Taylor?
Well, our esteemed guest kind of teased my selection here already, and he was saying about basically if Hunter Henry leads the Patriots in targets this year, something will have gone terribly wrong. But that doesn't mean I don't think that Hunter Henry is a great selection, because I think he is. Let me get to why. I probably will not have as much Henry as I would like when all is said and done this summer, but he's probably going to be my I guess last ditch tight end effort. So I think we all know, anybody who watches the podcast knows I love Evan Ingram. And then if I don't get Evan Ingram in the mid rounds and a couple other guys, first of all, I think Henry's probably going to be a low end tight end 1. I think we're there. As I mentioned with Demario Douglas, operating in one of the worst environments in recent memory, offensive environments in recent memory, Hunter still performed kind of at a low end tight end 1 level once Drake May took over the job last year. Now you'll probably like this if you don't know this already, Marcus. In the 11 games Henry and May played together, Henry scored at least 9 fantasy points 8 times and at least 12.6 times. If we exclude the one game in which Henry played about half the snaps in Week 17, Henry was the tight end 9 in the 10 full games he played with May. Henry was on a 54 catch pace with Jacoby Brissett as the starter last year, but a 77 catch pace with May. Even if Henry settles for last year's 66 receptions, he seems very likely to beat last year's two touchdown catches in what should be a much better offense. And as if we know anything about Henry throughout the years, he's been heavily targeted in the red zone wherever he's been. So, you have any thoughts?
Henry thoughts?
Yeah. After I threw cold water on your Hunter Henry thing, but
You're right though. Sorry.
I think the touchdown thing is very true, right? Like he has for all the times he's kind of frustrated us, because I was, again, when he got drafted, I was a huge Hunter Henry guy. I thought he was, I didn't necessarily think he was the next Antonio Gates for the Chargers, but I really did think he was going to be the next big thing at tight end. For even as much as he's been frustrating at times, he has always consistently been a touchdown scorer. And I would like to say touchdowns are fickle beasts. So the fact that he had 2 doesn't mean that he's declining there. I just think it means he has more opportunity. I do think the target distribution is going to be a little bit more spread out now, because you have Diggs, because there's Douglas, because there's Kyle Williams, because of Josh McDaniels there. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're still drawing up plays for Hunter Henry when they get down near the goal line. And so I think what he may lose potentially in targets, maybe even in receptions, I think he makes up for because that touchdown number goes up. And in the end, Hunter Henry always feels like that guy that either, you draft him late, or somehow if he's hanging around on the waiver wire, you plug him in, and like he never gives you the big spike weeks, but he's also never so bad that you're just ready to just put him back out there in the free agent pool. And I think at tight end, once you get outside the elite guys, those are the guys that sort of, hold you. That 9 fantasy points a week from the tight end position sometimes is kind of all you need.
Uh-huh. So,
especially in bye week, injury week.
But what you're saying is no one has ever said, "Damn it, Hunter Henry, you screwed me again." Is that what you're basically saying?
No one's ever said that. I mean, but here's the thing. It's sort of like a case of extremes, right? Because like nobody's ever said, "Hunter Henry, you screwed me again," but also like on draft day, nobody's ever like, "Damn it, you sniped Hunter Henry from me." Like it's never, it's somewhere in the middle there,
Oh Lord! All right, gentlemen. Any honorable mentions? Anybody who we did not talk about, who you're throwing darts at?
Marcus, I can give you a chance to think about it. I did write it down a couple. If you want to
go ahead, if you want to go. Yeah, I have one, but go ahead if you got.
Yeah, one. I just wanted to give you some time because that was a sneak attack on JJ's part.
That's all right. I usually have somebody in my back pocket.
That's so.
You do, Marcus, you're a pro.
Wow. Well, I'm prepared. What's up with me, JJ? Come on now. So
the question we've all been asking.
Wow.
Doug?
Yes. Okay, so I might have 1 or 2 depending on because like Marcus already took Bryce Young, so I only have one other one. I would say Trevor Lawrence is definitely worth a late look as a QB2. I couldn't believe that he was actually outside the 140s when I was looking. At running back, I have 2 that I'm going to be trying to. If I don't get one, I'll try to get the other. I'm going to try to get both, and that's Kyle Monangai and Will Shipley at receiver. And this is where I lied to Marcus before the show. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize Demario Douglas was outside the top 140 until I looked a little bit closer. So my honorable mentions here: Christian Kirk and Keenan Allen, and at tight end, Chig Okonkwo and Britton Strange.
Ooh, all right. I'd say at quarterback, this pick may come with a back brace, but Matthew Stafford, I think, when healthy and upright, is still as productive as anybody in the league. I think he's worth sort of buying in on. I mean, look, at this point, why not take the shot on Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt? They moved on from Brian Robinson for a reason. Plus, we can get a whole slew of Bill puns if he actually starts to pop the way we think he can potentially. Wide receiver, I've been big on Elic Iomanner just because the best description I saw of the I think it was one of the Titans beat writers said before the draft, the Titans depth chart at wide receiver basically was Calvin Ridley followed by hopes and prayers. So hopefully Elic Iomanner rates higher than both hopes and prayers and gets some opportunities. So he's one that I sort of like late rounds at the wide receivers position. And then Jasavian Sanders, I think is an interesting one to tight end too, because
Nice.
Again, we sort of see how the wide receiver room is coming into shape there in Carolina, but I think there's an opportunity at tight end. They like Sanders. I know they like his athleticism. So I think he's a guy that is worth, again, low risk, potentially high reward if it does hit.
Sounds good to me. Doug, anything else you want to add?
No, as far as audible mentions or whatnot, no, nothing else I want to add.
All right, gentlemen. Well, it is about time to say goodbye. I wanted to take a moment to thank Marcas for taking time to speak with us tonight. Can you let the good people know where they can find you?
Yeah, mostly I'm still occasionally over on X, but mostly on Blue Sky. Either way, the handle is the same: Marcas G, Marcasg. Other than that, NFL Fantasy Live on NFL Network, Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Also doing the NFL Fantasy Football Podcast with Michael F. Florio, the good Florio, and Laquan Jones. You can find that wherever you find podcasts. And then Saturday mornings, I do the Fantasy Life show on Sirius XM with Chris Manzo, and that airs from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern.
Fantastic. Doug?
All right, so I guess I update you on two sites. FF Today, I had arted the auction, just dropped a couple days ago. So if you're studying and preparing for your auction drafts, go ahead and give that a look and a read. Go over some strategy, and I basically took from some observations that I had from the huddle auction that we did. Oh, I guess it was about this time last week. So that's what's going on at FF Today. I'll be doing bold predictions next week, so look for that drop Tuesday morning or afternoon. And as far as the huddle, just keep your eyes glued to the draft guide page. I will be updating that shortly with something. It's just a matter of what. So
love the specifics there, Doug. I'm at JJ Wenner on Blue Sky. Thank you again to Marcas. This for all of your time. You're one of my favorite people to talk to at
Appreciate
the Expo.
that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you to Jody Smith for all of his support in the background. And we will be back next week at our new time, which is 7 p.m., because I'm a teacher and I need to go to bed early. So until then, remember, love yourself, know your worth. You are enough. Boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.